Hey guys, we're back in the workshop and today I've got a really cool project for you because we are building a chef knife for a charity raffle. So I will tell you later about the story of that knife, but we got this blade shape. This one is now a hidden tang, but I'm free to build the tang however I want, and I came up with this design right here. So I will build a full tang, but the blade shape will be this design that they gave me, and I'm really looking forward for this project. So the first step of building this knife is I retraced this design because I want to keep that drawing because it's kind of neat. So I have it roughly sketched up here, and then I have to cut it out and put it onto the steel because I'm using 80 CRV2, which is a great carbon steel. So let me tell you about the project. The project is called Klingen for Gutes, and that means actually blades for something good, because these knives are going to be raffled off for a charity auction at the knife show in Solingen, which is called Knife, and it will be on the 10th and 11th of May this year. 20 knife makers will participate in this raffle, and each knife maker has gotten the same blade shape, and they're going to make their knives in their style, and you can win this knife, which is a really cool project. And these knives are going to be displayed at the knife show, and you can look at them, and it's really cool because I love when people are making the same knife, but it actually shows how their style differs from each other, and it's a really nice idea what 60HRC podcast came up with in conjunction with knifematerial.at. If you have seen the last video about the MagnaCut knife, this shows the difference between a carbon steel and a stainless steel, because now I'm working on 80 CRV2, which is a high carbon steel, and those sparks flying off are much harder, and it's just crazy how the steel differs if it's carbon steel or stainless steel from the sparks flying around. After the profiling, I am drilling out the pinholes, and I'm also drilling out some lightning holes so I get a really nice balance in. For a normal outdoor knife, I wouldn't drill that many holes, but with the chef knife I wanted to have a really nice balance, and also those holes help with the glue up because more glue can travel through the tang and bond to those scales, so that is also nice. The knife is now profiled, and now I can start on the bevel grinding because I want to take up some material now before the heat treatment and then finish up the grind after the heat treatment. So I like to use blue dicam on the whole side of the knife because it gives you a really nice contrast and you see where your bevel grinds are, and that just helps me to quickly see if my grinds are good or not. So this chef's knife is quite long, so I'm grinding it in sections, and I'm trying to get a nice and consistent bevel as possible so I don't get any kind of warps during the heat treatment, because you want to have a nice and uniform bevel in the end, because belt bites and all that kind of stuff can lead to warps. So try to get everything as nice and flat as possible, and you can see how I'm grinding it actually in sections. I'm focusing on one part and then I'm focusing more near the tip. So now that the knife is tempering, I want to work on the handle, and I want to use these two materials, so a black and an orange. But what I want to do is I don't want to put the knife like that in and be kind of boring. What I want to do is I want to cut strip and then stack them. So I've got like a black, orange, black, orange, black, orange. So the scales in the end are located like that, or the pieces of the G10, and then I have like a really cool pattern in the end, which is kind of unique, which I haven't seen that often, and I just want to try it out. So now I have to cut up some pieces and then glue them up. It would be really interesting for me to know what you guys think about the handle. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Just drop it down into the comments. So now that the epoxy is cured, I'm grinding the epoxy away from the outside, and after that I'm going to split that block of G10, so I have actually two pieces of handle material that I can glue up to the knife. Now that the knife is hardened and tempered, I have added a file guide so I can get nice and consistent plunge lines. And I have also added some center lines because I really want to thin down that knife and add a really nice distal taper. And therefore I also scribed some lines on the spine of the knife so I can always check if everything is centered. Normally I work on a lot of knives at the same time, but for this knife I had just that knife on my desk and I could work straight on just one knife, and I could really focus on the grind, really focus on that distal taper, and it was really relaxing, and just to see how the knife material removes, and I could just focus on the distal taper, just look back and forth on the grinder, changing out belts and just go ham on it, and it was a lot of fun to grind this knife. And when I was done with the belt grinder, I took the knife to the disc grinder, and that just helps you to get a really nice and consistent flat area, because the disc grinder has a much wider flattened area, and it also helps you with the hand sanding because you can take it up to, like, let's say 600 grit on the disc grinder, and you can get out some 120 grit scratches really easily on the disc grinder, and you can also thin down your knife really nice and coolly and slowly, which is also important because you don't want to ruin the temper of your knife. Alright, so the knife is now finished ground on the disc grinder as well, and I just wanted to show you how the distal taper is. So we started with 4.1 roughly, and at this point here we are roughly at 1.5, and then on the tip it's basically like 0, like it's half millimeter, so the edge is also super thin.
And this one also will be now thinned down a little bit more during the hand sanding. And it also has some nice flex to it. And here you can see the distal taper from 4mm to like barely nothing. And already the knife feels amazing. But before I want to do the hand sanding, I want to work on the handle, so get everything prepped up. Then I can do the hand sanding, and then I can glue up the handle so I don't scratch up the hand sanded finish while I'm working on the handle and get everything prepped. So the handle is now shaped, and now I can start with the hand sanding.
Because this knife was disc ground on the disc grinder, the hand sanding task was actually really easy and I really enjoyed hand sanding this knife. Of course, it's also carbon steel, which is easier to hand sand than, let's say, a Magna Cut. And I also have different hand sanding pieces. So here you can see I have a really thin piece of G10 for that plunge line, and then I have a thicker one with a leather backing for the main bevel, so I get a really nice and consistent hand sanding finish in the end. And now I'm actually just pulling it towards me so I don't make any kind of crazy movements, so I get rid of every J-hooks that I have in it, and therefore you have a nice and cleaner hand sanded finish.
So the glue is now dry on this handle, so I can now start shaping this handle out.
So at first I wanted to make a different kind of handle style, so I didn't want to make any kind of rock pattern, but I thought about it when I was working on that knife, and we had 20 knife makers and each knife maker should actually represent their own style, and my style is rock pattern, so I had to add that rock pattern, and I think it gives that knife a really kind of unique look in the end. And when I was grinding actually the knife, I thought about the handle. It kind of looks or represents like a kind of bumblebee kind of style, which is also kind of neat, and I never seen something like that before. And some people may know that I was actually working as a sous chef in the kitchen for 4 years, and I just have to round off all those corners in the end because most of the factory knives, they have sharp corners in the choil, and it's just really uncomfortable when you're working a long time with that knife. So this portion needs to be rounded, and the spine as well. So now that the handle is done, I can finally sharpen up that knife. And what you see me doing here is I'm actually flattening out the sharpening stone, so I have a nice and consistent sharpening stone, and I get a really nice and sharp bevel in the end.
The knife is now done and I'm really happy on how it turned out. The distal taper is amazing and the hand sanded finish, I'm really happy with that. And also the handle was something new to me, but it also incorporates my style, of course, with the rock pattern. And I think for a chef knife, kind of more colorful handle fits the knife really, really well. And I'm really happy with the blade shape that they choose, and I'm super happy on everything on that knife. And I'm really looking forward who's going to win that knife in that raffle. So guys, if you liked that video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, write a comment so YouTube finally knows that I'm here, and we'll see us in the next one.